Welcome back to The Drive with Tim Donnelly. Dennis Cox here with you all. AEW Collision is coming to Greensboro. It's coming back to the state of North Carolina. Collision is tomorrow, 8 o'clock at the Greensboro Coliseum. And one of the stars that's going to be on Collision tomorrow night, you can watch her in a tag team match with Kris Statlander taking on Mercedes Martinez, as well as Diamante. Willow Nightingale is joining us. Willow, thanks for your time. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm excited to chat with you.
I've been looking forward to this conversation because you've been making a name for yourself in AEW for the better part of the last couple of years. AEW is still a very, very young company. From the time that you've gotten there up until this point, now with Collision being a couple of months old now, how have you seen AEW and the company grow in your time with All Elite Wrestling?
Well, when I very first started with AEW, I was just kind of coming around doing extra work.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't really a part of the roster yet. And that was when they were still in Jacksonville during the pandemic. So I feel like I really got to kind of see it when it was, I don't want to say in its infancy, but kind of figuring out the direction that the company was going to go in. And that was from an outside perspective. And since I've been able to join it, we've been on the road. Like you mentioned, we've added new companies, Ring of Honor. We've had new brands, Collision added, and it's really just interesting to see not only the fact that we're trying to grow in terms of just putting more wrestling out there,
Mm-hmm.
but in terms of the quality, what different types of wrestling we're trying to bring to people, the distinctions and just the different flavors you can see from each show. Yeah, it's been really interesting to see that.
So the main show, the initial show of All Elite Wrestling on Wednesday nights is Dynamite. Then Rampage was added on Friday evenings. Now AEW Collision comes along, which is at 8 o'clock on TNT. So for us here in the state of North Carolina, after you get done watching or listening to the Carolina Panthers play at 4 o'clock tomorrow, flip on over to TNT. You can watch AEW Collision in Greensboro. How is Collision as a show different than what people might see on Dynamite or on Rampage?
Well, I feel like Dynamite has kind of been the original true heart of what AEW had set out to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like Collision is really something that's a lot more focused on the in-ring. Not to say that Dynamite has amazing wrestling, but Collision is very focused on the wrestling, maybe a little more straightforward, a little less shenanigans. And I know I've had to come to the ring a few times to save my friend Kris at this point. So we still have bad guys being bad guys, beating everybody up and, not really minding their business. But, at the end of the day, we're going to settle it in the ring this Saturday and we will see what the result of that will be. Hopefully Stat and I will work together as a team and be able to take out Mercedes and Diamante.
So again, you and Kris Statlander in a tag team match against Mercedes Martinez as well as Diamante. Now, Mercedes Martinez, former Ring of Honor Women's Champion. You yourself have held a title, the New Japan Strong Women's Championship. You've held that title. How much of it is an honor and responsibility to be carrying a championship, whether it's with New Japan, whether it's Ring of Honor, whether it's AEW?
When you are in the middle of a championship reign,
Mm-hmm.
Every single move, I think, is reflected or reflective of you being worthy of a champion, right? So every time I stepped into the ring as a champion, every interaction I had with a media personality, I recognize the fact that it's not just me being Willow Nightingale, it's Willow Nightingale, the champ. And so I have this prestige and this beautiful title to uphold through my words and through my work. So I remember that every time I step into the ring. And now that my New Japan Strong Championship reign is over, I've still won the Owen Hart tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I will continue to carry forward with me as well. Just knowing that I've accumulated these accolades and whether those matches might be done or the reigns might be done, that's still a part of who I am. And I have to continue moving forward, showing my best foot and growing nonstop, which I don't really view as something that's necessarily high pressure.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I view that more as exciting. It's okay, I've done so much and now I've been wrestling for 8 years and still there's more to learn. There's more to unlock and get better. So I'm really excited about hopefully accumulating more accolades in the future.
Willow Nightingale of All Elite Wrestling joining us here on The Drive. Dennis Cox here with you all. Willow joining us on the Keystra Automotive Group hotline. Now, Willow, you talked about the next steps for you. What is the next step in the evolution of Willow Nightingale? Because I know for us in our business and media, for anyone that works in entertainment, you have to continue to grow and evolve. What's that next thing for you?
So for me right now, I think as much as I'm like proud of my in-ring work, I'm always trying to like fine tune it. And luckily we have some of like the smartest people about wrestling backstage. So it's listening to things that I can still improve upon, going to training, making sure that that's done. Recently I had a main event match with Athena at Ring of Honor, Death Before Dishonor. And that was like 20 minutes or so. And I think that's the longest match I've had in my AEW Ring of Honor career. And I'd really like to move forward, being able to have lengthy, like, feature matches like this again. So I'd really like been focusing on conditioning, trying to be able to like make sure I could do 30-minute matches plus whatever. Because if I am put in that position again, and hopefully I am, I want to be able to go and like not have any restraints or anything holding me back. So that's one thing. Obviously, my good friend Kris Statlander, TBS championship holder.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm going to help her out this week. We're going to do our best. And I'm rooting for her. But it's not lost on me that she is a champion at AEW and I am not. Hikaru Shida also just became the AEW Women's World Champ. And I'm such a huge fan of hers. I only got to wrestle her on the Jericho Cruise this past year. But I think it would be really awesome to have a match televised for our fans and see how that turns out. So I think there are a lot of directions that, you know, the next few months could go for me. That's kind of where I have my attention always, is who are the champs, what are they doing, and how do I reach that level? But yeah, only time will tell exactly what I do, but that's kind of like always where my eyes are.
Hey, always have your eyes on the prize, right? Always looking for that championship. Hey, I get it. That's the whole reason why you get into the business, right? You want to be on top.
Yeah.
Coming again, AEW Collision is in Greensboro at the Greensboro Coliseum. Tomorrow, 8 p.m. is when showtime starts on TNT. Now, the state of North Carolina has a very rich, deep history in terms of professional wrestling. The company I work for, Capital Broadcasting Company, WRAL, in our studio is where the Ric Flair-Ricky Steamboat rivalry actually began. So the history of wrestling in this state is very, very deep. And it's coming again to Greensboro Coliseum, which for a long time, that was like the Madison Square Garden of the South. For you, Willow, not being a professional wrestler, you've been doing it for 8+ years now, being able to compete and wrestle in a place like Greensboro Coliseum, where some of the greats, Flair, the Horsemen, Dusty Rhodes, all got to compete. How special is that for you as a pro wrestler?
I think it's always really important to be able to recognize the history of our company, because without it, we wouldn't be where we are right now, right? So I have been fortunate to have been able to have a bunch of special moments in really awesome venues with a lot of history. And so this, to me, is another opportunity to honor the past with the present. I've wrestled in North Carolina a handful of times. I think in my indie career, there was a period of time I was going back and forth, which is about from New York, like a 9-hour drive.
Yeah.
And we would do that like 9-hour drive there, no sleep, do the show, and just go straight back. And, you know, that's not something you do without love of our sport, of the history of our sport, and of course the fans. So I'm really excited to be back in front of the North Carolina fans and show out for them.
I'm curious, where in North Carolina have you wrestled before?
So I was pretty regularly wrestling for Queens of Combat at one point.
Okay.
So I would say that was probably like maybe like 2018, 2017-ish. But I used to go on road trips back and forth, actually with Kris Statlander on a few of those. So it's really fun to have like a full circle moment like this. Yeah.
All right, final question for you, Willow Nightingale. Again, tomorrow, AEW Collision is in Greensboro on TNT at 8 o'clock. If you want to go to the show, get tickets. An AEW show, in my opinion, is as good as it gets. It's the best out there. The in-ring work is fantastic. When someone who may not be well versed in what happens in All Elite Wrestling, or maybe just pro wrestling as a whole, when they come to an AEW show, what can a fan expect?
I will say, especially going to a live show,
Mhm.
it will capture your attention like unlike anything else. Like obviously there's the athleticism. Um, obviously there's like this larger than life personalities that are constantly being displayed to you. But seeing a show live, it's like the crowd gives you so much energy, and to be a part of that crowd and experience all of the wonderful things that we tried to provide for you, to be amongst other people enjoying it and like cheering, it's beautiful. It's magic, honestly. And there's nothing else that can recreate it. So the only way to find out is to do it.
Come check out Willow Nightingale. She's in a tag match. She and Kris Statlander against Diamante and Mercedes Martinez. That's on AEW Collision tomorrow in Greensboro. Willow, thanks for your time. Really do appreciate it. And best of luck tomorrow.
Thank you, Dennis.